everybody. Welcome to another episode of Happy and Healthy Wellness TV. I'm your host, Christie Korth. I'm also the author of the IBD Healing Plan and recipe book, which I'm super excited to talk to you all about today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I wrote this book and then why this book is helpful for somebody going through a similar type of situation. So I'm a Crohn's disease survivor. I almost died about 10 years ago now when I was 19 years old from a very severe case of Crohn's disease. I went from the time I was 9 up until I was 19, undiagnosed with this horrible digestive problem. And I don't need to tell any of you out there who are also fellow IBD sufferers how devastating this disease can be, particularly if you don't know that you have it. And I went through quite a lot of hard time in those 10 years. And finally, when I was 19, I was diagnosed with Crohn's. And I know this might sound crazy, but to be honest with you, I was actually a little happy about it because finally there was something behind these symptoms. Finally, somebody could tell me why I had such a sensitive stomach my entire life. So I thought, kind of foolishly now that I go back and think of it, that once I knew what the disease was, that I would get better. Unfortunately, that didn't happen to me right away. I spent the next 3 years of my life in and out of hospitals on every medication there was known to man for Crohn's at the time. And unfortunately, I failed most of those therapies miserably. I got to the point where I was 22 years old. I was admitted into the hospital for a very severe flare-up. And again, I don't need to tell any of my fellow IBD family how devastating a flare-up can be, particularly if you're in a lot of pain. And I lost a lot of weight. And my doctor had sent a surgeon up to my room, and the surgeon told me that if I didn't have my intestines removed, it was likely that I wasn't going to make it. So, of course, that was a very scary thing to hear at 22 years old. You're going to have to walk around for the rest of your life with a colostomy bag. And I got to tell you guys, I'm a stubborn Italian-German girl, and I was not having it. So instead of listening to the doctor, I probably did what you should never do. So please, I don't recommend you follow in my footsteps. But I AMA'd. I left the hospital against medical advice, and I wound up going home, sitting on my couch for an entire week and reading every health book I could possibly find that could tell me what I could do to help my digestion, sans having all of my intestines removed from my body. So I got really lucky. In my quest of trying to find information about digestion, I had somebody tell me about the book called The Maker's Diet by Jordan Rubin, who is a dear colleague, and I think that he's just fantastic and amazing. And at the time, I knew nothing about his therapy or what he did, and realized I was eating completely wrong. So I don't know if any of you guys out there were eating the same thing I was eating when I was 19 years old, but typical college diet. I was pulling up at the drive-thru at a fast food restaurant. I was going out with my friends over the weekends and partying and doing things that we shouldn't be doing to take care of ourselves. So upon reading The Maker's Diet, a big light bulb over the head, or as Oprah calls it, that aha moment, totally had the aha, and I said, okay, I need to change everything that I'm doing. So I wound up going back and adding some other therapies in, such as probiotics. I started taking anti-inflammatory supplements and a few other things that I talk about in the IBD Healing Plan and recipe book. And between doing that and changing my then atrocious college diet and starting to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables and more lean proteins and things like that, I started to improve. But I improved only to a point that I kind of plateaued out, and then it led me to go back, what exactly is going on here? So I decided I'm going to go back to school for nutrition. So I went to Columbia University and the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and between both of those schools I learned a lot. And I like to tell people IAN totally saved my life, because it was at IAN where I had one of my classmates who sat next to me turn around and say, well, why don't you have yourself tested for gluten sensitivity? You know, maybe that's what's bothering you. And this is going way back when, guys, before anybody knew what gluten was. I know now everybody pretty much has a good idea about what it is because it's such a fad diet. But back then, I wound up having my DNA tested, and lo and behold, I have the HLA-DQ2 gene that predisposes me to gluten intolerance. So what does that mean in real life? Well, what that means is that both my mom and dad have the inability to break down gluten, and they pass that down to me in my DNA. So I don't break that down. So I'm Italian, I mentioned before. What do you think this Italian girl from New York loves to eat? Bagels, pastas, bread, everything that my tummy absolutely cannot stand. So way back then, if you would have told me that bread was what was bothering me, I would have told you you were crazy and out of your mind, because how could that food that I love so much be bothering me? Well, guess what? That's exactly what I talk about in the IBD Healing Plan and recipe book. This book is laid out in such a way that you actually, somebody with IBS or IBD, would be able to figure out what foods may be affecting their digestive system, as well as what supplements may be appropriate for you. So I'm just going to give you guys a breakdown of what each one of the chapters cover. So in the book, I talk a little bit about inflammatory disease 101, inflammatory bowel disease 101. And what I talk about there is What the heck is Crohn's? What is colitis? What is celiac disease? And what are some treatment methods that are being used in modern times today to deal with these diseases, both on the mainstream medical side as well as on the complementary or nutrition side of things. So I like to mix mainstream medical with nutrition because I feel like doing the both of those two things combined, really good powerhouse therapy you got going on. It could be really helpful for people. So we talk about the science behind IBD. I get into a little bit about how a holistic lifestyle can help you to live a better life, and we have some really cool quizzes and some goal sheets in here to help you really be very clear on what do I want, how do I want to improve my health, and how can I go ahead and do that. And that first chapter kind of allows you to be able to set that up. Chapter 2 talks about something called food intolerance and inflammatory bowel disease. So a lot of people today, a hot topic is food intolerance, and I think a lot of people are interested in it but don't really understand what it is. So I'll give you a quick idea. So what is the difference between a food allergy and a food intolerance? So food allergies, God forbid you have one, let's just say you're allergic to an apple. Well, you're probably going to know that pretty early on in life because a true allergy, which is something called an IgE reaction, happens real fast. That's, God forbid somebody produces histamine or they go into anaphylaxis, you got to take that person to the ER, or you better make sure you have an EpiPen floating around because that's a dangerous situation. That's actually not the reaction we're talking about in the IBD Healing Plan recipe book. What we talk about is something called an IgG reaction, so G like George, and that stands for immunoglobulin G, and G denotes a particular reaction in the body. What the letter G denotes is something called cytokine production in the body, which are inflammatory markers. And inflammatory markers, they're not your friend, guys. Inflammatory markers inflame the gut, they inflame the brain, and they can inflame the respiratory tract. So my theory is that people with Crohn's and colitis or celiac disease, celiac disease, let's take out of this because that's a little different, but for people with Crohn's and colitis and IBS, what my theory is that food intolerances contribute to the inflammation in your gut. So I'm not saying that food intolerances cause Crohn's or colitis, but what I am saying is that very successfully we have been able to work with hundreds of people, thousands of people at this point now, over the years, and been able to help them out by finding out what foods the person is sensitive to or intolerant to, and then eliminating them from the diet. Now, for some people, we have to eliminate those foods for a long time, and sometimes it's on a long term, like me. I have a genetic predisposition not to be able to break down gluten, so I unfortunately have to take gluten out of my diet forever. But not everybody's like that, and we talk about that in the IBD Healing Plan book. How can you figure out what foods are appropriate for you, either through doing testing or by a food sensitivity diary, or we're working with a professional like myself, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we get through this. So that's going to be the chapter 2. Chapter 3 talks about, okay, now you know what foods you can and can't eat. Now how the heck do you put together a diet for yourself? So we talk about menu planning. We talk about the 8 common food sensitivities or food intolerances and how you can substitute different things in your diet. For example, let's say you find out you can't have dairy. Well, we at Happy and Healthy, at our private practice here, are experts in helping you figure out what foods you can then eat if you're intolerant to something. So if you're on a gluten, egg, and dairy-free diet, people look at me when they get test results back. Sometimes they're like, oh my God, this is like the worst day of my entire life. You're telling me I can't eat this, I can't eat that, so on and so forth. Believe me, guys, I totally get you. You're talking to the girl who cried in front of a Hot and Crusty in Manhattan when I found out I could not eat a bagel. People walk past me like, what the heck is going on with this lady? I'm sitting there completely like a basket case in front of a bakery in the city. So pretty funny stuff, but I totally understand where people are coming from when they have that panic moment when they realize that a lot of the foods that they are currently eating no longer are foods that can be in your diet. So we are very fortunate here at our practice. We have a chef on our staff, Chef Samantha Pagan, who works hand in hand with myself and our other nutritionists here to help us to formulate amazing, delicious menu plans for people that, you know, guess what? Your diet's a little less than perfect. We can't eat just about everything. So rest assured, guys, if you find that you can't eat something, I'm your girl, and I'm going to help you figure out what to eat. We're also going to talk about foods that are very soothing for the intestines. So I've worked with a lot of clients over the years, and one of the top things I hear is that my doctor's not really sure what to tell me to eat. That's okay. You know, your doctor's not really supposed to know all of that stuff. Docs don't go to school for nutrition, they go to school for medicine. So in nutrition, that's where we really want to make sure we take the time to teach you all of that information. So I'm going to go over with you some of the most researched foods that are amazing and wonderful for your intestines to make sure they're soothed and they feel good. And then we're going to talk about supplements. As I mentioned before, supplements were a big pivotal piece in what got me well. And I had a lot of bad bacteria overgrowth and a few other problems that I had to clear up in order for my digestion to improve and for my body to be able to adequately absorb nutrition. That's a whole other Oprah show of problems. Let's talk about that a little bit. what kind of issues do we have when we have Crohn's and colitis or IBS? And that's usually malabsorption of nutrition. So I have to tell you, everyone, if you're not absorbing your nutrition correctly, there's a saying that we have in nutrition. It's called death starts in the colon. I know it's terrible for me to say, but guess what? It's true. Because if you don't break your foods down correctly, do you think that you're going to be able to have enough energy to complete tasks in your life, or that your body's able to regenerate and restore muscle and tissue and waste in the body? You're not going to be able to do that if you don't have the appropriate nutrients. So we talk about how to correct that in the IBD Healing Plan. We also talk about some resources, and then the back is my work for the past 3-4 years of making a lot of yummy recipes that are free of the top 8 common allergens. So this is the IBD Healing Plan and recipe book. We have helped a lot of people in our private practice with the protocols that are in this book, and my dream and my mission is to help as many people with Crohn's disease, colitis, and IBS as possible. I once suffered to the point where I was disabled, and now I'm here and I'm able to work and contribute to society and do extremely well, and pretty much 95% of the time doing that being symptom-free. So my question for you is, are you ready? Are you ready to get your life back? Are you ready to learn what foods are going to be better for you and how to stay out of the bathroom? And I think that's something we could all share if you have Crohn's or colitis. So guys, this is a little overview of my book. If you're interested in reading it, you can certainly go ahead to hunterhouse.com, or you can go to amazon.com, or just about anywhere books are sold, and pick up the IBD Healing Plan and recipe book. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, I'm the founder and director of Happy and Healthy Wellness Counseling. You can visit our website at www.happyandhealthywellness.com. And I hope to see and hear from you guys soon. And have a happy and healthy day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, guys.